Greetings, young Padawans. Sorry, brave adventurers. Uh, welcome back to the channel, Eric's UK. And today I'm going to talk about a war game that I kind of heard about during lockdown, but only recently got to play. And that is Grimdark Future by One Page Rules. So basically, it is a variation, a fan-made, free-to-download variation on the Warhammer 40k war game from Games Workshop. It crossed my radar during lockdown. It came up, a series of battle reports by several different channels came across as something you might be interested in while I was sitting there basically spending my time scouring YouTube. And at the time, I took a look and I wasn't overly interested. It wasn't until recently when one of the people in my gaming club made mention of it. And had even bought some of the 3D printed models that they produce. Or you can buy the FTL, STL files as proxy models for his Tyranid army. And recently I said, well, I'm quite happy to give it a go. I'm happy to try anything. And we've had a couple of games, and as of recording this today, I've got a game tonight with him. So we'll jump into it. So despite being the company or website, I should re-say, because I don't think they're really a company, being called One Page Rules, the rules are actually about 9 pages. But they are a very simplified version of 40k. Or I'll rephrase that. It's designed as a fan-based replacement for people who feel that 40k is perhaps a little too rules-heavy, a little too bloated, and people who want something a little bit simpler that can be played in a fraction of the time. And where a game of 40k might take you 3 or 4 hours, this is a lot quicker. You haven't got to faff about it, it's just straightforward. And in fact, 2 small 750-point games, which is what they recommend for you to learn the game with, we managed to get 2 of those done in the space of about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And that's with basically making sure we were doing everything right and nattering and everything else. So you could probably do it a lot quicker if you were just playing it. From a personal perspective, I actually prefer the complexity of 40k, but this certainly has its interest. So basically, they've ditched most of the stats. If you know Warhammer 40k, you know that it has a big stat block of like 8 different stats. This has 2. You have a quality and you have a defense. Your defense is your armor save. Your quality is basically used for everything else, whether that be like a morale test or shooting or assault, whatever. Your army is a flat. This is what we do. This is our armor save. This is our defense. And you agree on the points as normal, and you build your army. Now, they do have all the I won't call it a codex, but they do have the relevant army lists to download as PDFs on their website. And their website also has a really cool army builder, which does it all for you online, and then you can print out the... I've got one here to show you actually for tonight. It prints out quite nicely, very simple stats, and all your rules at the bottom. It's the wrong way around, I'm sure. You guys are looking at this, and you probably can't see it all that great, but symbols. Everything is standard. So you won't have the options and variety that you have in a Warhammer Codex. Instead, for example, I'm playing Battle Brothers, which is your Space Marines. Everybody has a heavy rifle. It's the default. It doesn't matter whether you take Pathfinders, which are, I think, your sniper type dudes. They have heavy rifles. Everybody has a close combat weapon. Unless you pay points to have an energy sword or an energy fist or an energy hammer, everybody has a close combat weapon. Then you get options. So if you take a Battle Brothers squad, you can upgrade it to... you can upgrade one guy to have a special or heavy weapon equivalent. In my army tonight, for example, I have one model that has for 40k purposes, a heavy bolter. In this, it's just called a heavy machine gun. A character can have a plasma pistol. And basically, you look at whatever the equivalent is for the unit that you have for 40k, and you can generally, not perfectly, but you can generally build the same units. It's very simple and straightforward. There isn't a lot of thought to your army building other than what you want to take. There are some nice things. For example, in this case, I have a master brother, which is your character, and you can choose to make them. What did I give mine? Mine is a captain equivalent, so they have a rule called advanced tactics, which lets you move 2 units. When he activates, he lets you move 2 other units a couple of 3 inches. They get a little bit of a run. You've got a chaplain equivalent that boosts. You've got a psyker, although the psychic powers I don't think are phenomenal in this. They are very, very basic. And there's an engineer, tech, marine type equivalent. And every unit you can upgrade somebody to be a medic if you wanted to. You don't have things like invulnerable saves. Certain armies, like the robot legions, like Necrons, have a regenerate rule, which gives them the ability to shrug off wounds once they've taken them. Certain weapons have, I think it's called lethal, which means they do a flat whatever. Oh, deadly, sorry, not lethal, deadly. So, for example, I'm taking an aircraft tonight. Its laser cannons are deadly, which means they do 3 damage rather than 1. Everybody has 1 wound unless they have a toughness, and it will tell you how many wounds they have. The plane, for example, has 6. Characters have 3. And that's basically your building your list. How it plays. You play on a 6x4 table. You roll d3 plus 2 for the number of objectives, and you place those objectives. In the old style of it's got to be so many inches away from a table edge, so many inches away from another objective. You win by holding, at the end of, I think it's 5 rounds you play, whoever's holding the most objectives wins. It's not adding it up as you go along through the game like 40k presently does. It's just at the end of the game, you win if you hold more objectives than your opponent. But essentially the way it works is you roll to see who goes first. Now, bear in mind, I've only played this twice. I can't remember whether it's they pick the deployment and the other person goes first or vice versa, or whether it's... You have to bear with me on that bit. But once you do that, you alternate. You go, I go mechanic, and you pick a unit that hasn't activated that turn, and they either stand still and shoot, if you want them to shoot. They move forward 6 inches and shoot. They run 12 inches and don't shoot, or they charge 12 inches and attack. Bish, bash, bosh. If you choose a charge, the opponent has the option, once you've done your attacks, if they have anybody left, to attack back. But because of a mechanic that basically says they've been involved in an action, they get, if they don't choose to fight back at that stage, when they do activate, they get -1 to do anything. So there is that little bit of tactic of who you charge and what you want them to do or not do. And that is the basics of the game. You roll your quality to hit. If you hit, they roll their defense. You assume to have auto-wounded. They roll their defense. If they fail a defense roll, they take the damage. Sorted. It is really, really simple. Now, I enjoyed the 2 games that we played a couple of weeks ago. It gave me time to sort of like think about it. The one thing I would say is actually no. Let's do this as pros and cons. Pros, I get a really big... If you remember Rogue Trader, if you played Rogue Trader, the original first edition of 40k, I get really strong vibes from this. Mainly in kind of how it... Okay, I'm going to go on a slight tangent, so bear with me. So in Rogue Trader, the universe was not as set for 40k as it is now, and it was almost an anything goes type thing. So you could be playing orcs, your opponent could be playing, let's say, Chaos Marines, and it could be that the narrative that you roll, because there was a series of tables you could roll to see what your narrative was. It could be the planetary governor's daughter has been kidnapped by Chaos Space Marines, and he's basically paying a bunch of orcs to go in and rescue her, or vice versa. Stuff that wouldn't happen now in 40k. This gives that same sort of vibe to me. You can easily just come up with your own fluff for what the battle is, that won't contradict anything else, that won't feel out of place. And I liked that. We played my Battle Brothers versus my friends Alien Hive, i.e. Space Marines versus Tyranids, and that scenario that I've just mentioned was something that sort of come through my head. The planetary governor's daughter has disappeared whilst out with her guards, and he sent a bunch of Battle Brothers to find out where she's gone when nobody else comes back. I lost the first game, which I expected to do, and I won the second one. So we were like, yeah, we've come out, we found there's, it's a bug planet, and they've bested us, and we've gone back in and we've spudded them and rescued the daughter. That sort of, you come up with whatever BS feels right in your head, and it works. And I really liked that. I liked the fact that it was a simple system. There are times we had to look rules up, and with a couple of instances when we kind of went, well, how does this work? And we ended up just agreeing on the D3, a D6 roll, 1 to 3. It worked in my favour. 4 to 6 is my opponent's favour, and we'll try and fathom it out after that. The simple rules, however, were also a bit of a downer for me. I like the complexity of 40k, and I'm not a competitive player. I'm a very casual player. This really feels like it's lacking something, and that's because it is designed to be so simplistic. But if you're one of those people who feels that, something like Warhammer is far too bloated by rules and codices and things, then you will probably enjoy this. It's the sort of game that I can see myself playing periodically, but I wouldn't want to play it as, I was going to say religiously then, but as consistently as I do with Warhammer. Now, they also do, I need to touch on this as a side thing, they do a kind of like a kill team / Necromunda style version called Grimdark Firefight. I've watched quite a few battle reports of that, and that's basically, you probably have a half a dozen to a dozen models, depending on cost, and each one is a separate autonomous unit, just like in, I've never played Kill Team, but I've seen Necromunda played, and it's that sort of thing. One model is one guy. And that uses a slightly different system from what I gather from watching battle reports. They also do 3 fantasy versions. They do an Age of Fantasy, which is their Age of Sigmar equivalent, which I've watched quite a few battle reports from quite recently, and that one really grabs my interest more than Age of Sigmar does. I think this sort of style of simplified rules really works for that. They do an Age of Fantasy Regiments, which is rank and file movement trays like old Warhammer did, and they do, I can't think what it's called, I think it's Age of Fantasy Skirmish, the name's got it in my head, which is the Kill Team Necromunda / Mordheim type version, which I haven't watched any battle reports of. On their website, they also have a couple of other games. I think there's a Blood Bowl equivalent, and I think there's a Battlefleet Gothic equivalent, but I've not really looked at those. All in all, I think that Grimdark Future is a nice game. It's certainly fun here and there. It doesn't take a lot to set up. It doesn't take a lot to do. If I had any real grumbles, it is that it is slightly too simplistic, and also some of the units that you may have in your Warhammer army do not translate over. Vehicles and tanks generally don't translate over very well. You can easily do a Land Raider or a Predator, but if you've got something like a Kratos or a Sikaran or something like that, it will not translate over very well. But that may be something that they will adjust in time. It does seem like a bit of a living system that keeps going. And, so I recommend, if you're looking for something simpler, give it a try. It's called Grimdark Future by One Page Rules. And if you've played it and you like it, or you played it and you don't like it, or you've given it a go from watching this video, pop a comment down below, let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed the vid, give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. That would be much appreciated. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing your comments. Until next time, take care, guys. Good gaming.